Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is Friday. That's right, Fun Friday. It is day 118, June the 30th, 2017. Whew, didn't think Friday would ever get here, but it finally did, and I am whipped, so I'll be happy tomorrow to finish up and pack it in and come home and enjoy the evening. I'll let it go at that. A lot of news to get to, but I don't want to ramble too much here on your Friday evening, take up too much of your time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get right at it and just hit the highlights and the lowlights and all the good topics we have and call it a night. Alrighty, big news today. First we'll get a couple little things out of the way. Of course, in the past 24 hours, CNN is really going through meltdown now. They spent the last 24 hours talking about whether or not Trump and his tweets and the way he talks about the media is a danger to journalists. That's right. They're now saying that Trump may be a danger to journalists. He's putting them in danger. Their lives could be in danger. People might want to go out and start shooting them because Trump is calling them the fake news. What's even funnier about all this is that in the past 24 hours, CNN has almost become the story. Is CNN going to melt down? Is CNN going away? Is CNN going to collapse? And all these sorts of stories. And the answer to that question is, yes, they certainly are. Now, they're going to ride the wave that they're on for a little while longer, probably. But believe me, this thing is not going to end well for CNN or Mr. Zucker. And I think that they'll find this to be true in the months to come. I think that they're headed for a very, very hard time at CNN. And I think when the smoke clears and the dust settles, I think you're going to see a complete house cleaning over at CNN. But it's funny because even Fox News was making it, several of their shows was actually talking about making fun of CNN for coming out and suggesting that maybe, journalists are going to be, attacked because of Trump or what have you. What's mind-boggling about this is that CNN has spent the last year pumping up and motivating all these groups and all these racially charged riots that we saw in this past year. The Black Lives Matter, the anti-Trump, anti-Republican stuff. If anybody has wound people up, and if anybody may have had a role to play and a crazy guy actually shooting at people, and he was targeting Republicans, he probably was a CNN viewer, for them to come out and try to play this game against Trump, it's a loser. It's going to backfire on them. No one really takes them seriously. No one would waste a bullet on anyone at CNN. They're just not worth it. So anyway, it's just funny that CNN, they really are going into meltdown mode. I don't think they know which way to go. But I can tell you that CNN, when the smoke clears and the dust settles, CNN is going to be going through some major changes, and there'll be a lot of people there who won't be around anymore. Fox News asking, is it finally over for CNN? So a lot of people are catching on. I've been talking about this for quite some time. And MSNBC is not far behind, along with the New York Times. And it's funny, this morning, and they were talking about these tweets. I love Trump, man. This is great. He's talking about apparently the Morning Joe on MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, the girly man, Joe Scarborough, sissy boy, along with his girlfriend, Mika Brzezinski, daughter of Satan. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who created Al-Qaeda for us, part of the Bilderbergs, the New World Order, the globalists, and all those people, the grand chessboard man himself, his daughter, of course, and Joe have got a little action going. I think they're going to be getting married. She's probably pregnant. Anyhow, they were doing what they normally do every day, beating up on Trump, and he decided to retaliate. So he sent out a tweet this morning, and he's talking about, he says, Joe, he calls him Psycho Joe, and low IQ, crazy Mika were at Mar-a-Lago back during the first of the year for 3 days. He says during that time they had requested to have dinner with him, and he declined. And he said also at the time Mika's face was up bleeding because she had just had a facelift. I just love the way he tweaks these people, man. It's just absolutely fantastic. Okay, so that's some of the fun stuff. Now let's get to the serious, hardcore TowerGate information. The House Intelligence Committee has sent a letter to Trump and his administration to subpoena for any access to the supposed tapes, any conversations between Trump and Comey. Of course, we know that Trump came out and had his little press conference and said there's no tapes. Of course there's no tapes. You know, Trump can play the same game they played with him when he said wiretapping. Now he can play the same game they're playing because there's no tapes. You know, tape is analog. Analog, believe me, I was one of the last guys to hold out as a musician and someone who liked to work in the studio quite a bit. I was one of the last guys, I was one of the last hardcore holdouts to hold on to the analog system of recording, meaning tape. Tape, audio tape. But it is gone. It is over. Audio tape is gone and unfortunately may not ever come back. We may get back to vinyl, but it's still coming off of a digital press, so it really doesn't matter. You know, if you're listening to a vinyl record that was recorded digitally, it's, you know, it defeats the purpose, but that's music stuff. Who cares? But the fact of the matter is we live in a digital world. There are no tapes. There are no tapes. So Trump can easily come back and say, yeah, we have no tapes. There's no tapes. No tapes of any conversations. Now, I don't believe that there's any recordings of any conversations with Trump and Comey at all, other than, you know, the White House has a taping system at the White House. But as far as Trump having a Nixon-style, you know, recording system set up underneath his desk where he's recording people in conversations, I don't believe he has anything like that. It's not needed in the modern age, Mr. Grassley, or whoever is requesting these. No, it's actually the other committee. This is the Intel Committee. Not the Judiciary Committee. So this would be Adam Schiff. Yes, this would be Adam Schiff, the pencil-neck liberal geek who wants access to those tapes. Well, Mr. Schiff, I hate to tell you this, but tapes, we don't use tapes anymore. Trump wouldn't need any tape. Trump can go to Radio Shack and buy a little device that's small to fit in the palm of your hand. I have one. I might even have it. No, it's not in front of me right now. But a small little recording device sits in the palm of your hand, records beautifully. You can set it down anywhere in a room, record a meeting, record anything. It records great. Me and my partner use them for recording ideas and things. So we both have one and we both use it a lot. Trump could have a little digital recording device and no one would ever know. But there are no tapes, Mr. Schiff. Welcome to 2017, Mr. Schiff. We got rid of analog and went digital in 2002 for the most part. As far as that's concerned, good luck even finding anybody who produces audio tape anymore. Good luck with that. You can, but they're going to charge you a hell of a lot of money for that reel, I can tell you that. And if you have a tape machine that still works, or if you can find parts for it when it breaks down, go ahead, Mr. Schiff. Welcome to the digital world. There are no tapes. So shove it, you pencil neck liberal geek, you fool. Next, the Senate Judiciary Committee will be targeting Susan Rice and Obama in the Russian scandal. Susan Rice will be testifying before the House Intelligence Committee sometime in the month of July. She'll be testifying about Russia and about her role in the unmasking of Trump associates. This will be a closed session. So how much we're going to learn about what comes out of that, I don't know. But whatever evidence is gained in that closed-door session will certainly be recorded, and it will probably come back to haunt Susan Rice in the future. And I imagine, this is in the Senate Judiciary Committee, I imagine that the House Oversight Committee is still going to be wanting to speak with Susan Rice because that's Trey Gowdy's committee. So I'm pretty sure that we now have it confirmed, though, that I don't know if they've set the actual date, but she will testify in a closed session in this for the Senate Judiciary Committee. But she's also going to be called to testify by Trey Gowdy's committee, the Oversight Committee in the House, and I assume that they'll try to do that as well in July because, of course, in August they pretty much leave town. unless there's an emergency. Most of these guys will be out of Washington, and that FISA court has to be reauthorized by September. So whatever they're going to do, they're going to have to get it done in July, unless they want this thing to drag farther down the road, which I'm sure they do not. So we are finally going to get to hear something from Susan Rice. And even if they're closed sessions, whatever is learned in there certainly may be something that becomes the probable cause for the Senate Judiciary Committee to recommend to the Department of Justice that they proceed with a criminal investigation and possibly file charges against Susan Rice. Unfortunately, we all want to see justice done, but you know, I know how these things work. And for the politicians that sit on this committee, particularly the Republicans and all these people, for them this is just a political show. They want to score political points. They want to bring people in, put on a dog and pony show, and get some face time and get some political points. That's really what's of interest to these people. I don't think they have any interest in getting any real justice, but hopefully there'll be something learned in the Senate Judiciary Committee hearings that will result in probable cause for the Department of Justice to take up a criminal investigation and possibly file criminal charges against Susan Rice. There's a lot of people pushing for that, and of course I think we have a better chance on the House Oversight Committee with Trey Gowdy. Whether or not that will be a closed session, I don't know. And of course, as Maura has mentioned or asked in the comment section, she can plead the Fifth. Well, yes, she can. You certainly can plead the Fifth. You're not obligated to talk to Congress. She can also plead the Fifth in a criminal proceeding. You know, anyone can do that, but it's a double. It's tricky because if there's a good case against you, a lot of times if there's a good case against you, the only thing that might save your skin is if you go testify. Now, a lot of times when this is done, a person realizes that they have lost the case, and their attorney says, well, you know what, you can't hurt yourself, we're going to lose the case. You might as well go up there and try to look like you're sorry, play the victim, do whatever, hope for some sympathy, and maybe you'll get a lesser sentence. This is generally how these things work themselves out. So we'll just keep following it. But one thing's for sure, Susan Rice will definitely be in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee in July, and I expect that the House Oversight Committee will also be having Susan Rice in for a little chit-chat. President Trump has nominated 9 federal prosecutors. It takes a little bit of time for them to go through the process before they'll be sworn in and put into service, but hopefully he'll get that done fast, and they'll continue to remove these Obama administration federal prosecutors and get Trump's people in there. So he has now nominated 9 federal prosecutors, and hopefully they'll be put into service very soon. The New York Times has recently fired some editors and reporters. Why? Because they're losing money. People ain't buying the New York Times. People don't like the New York Times. They don't trust the New York Times. The New York Times used to actually be the news source in this country for 50 years. It was the source that everybody relied on. Almost all the news stories that came out on TV or radio or the things that pundits were talking about, the New York Times was driving the bus. But they have slipped so badly in the past 20 to 25 years since the old man died and Pinchy Sulzberger, his son, took over. And then, of course, now we have God knows who's running the New York Times now. But they have gotten so bad that, that it's not looking good for the New York Times. I mean, we're moving into a digital world, an online world, and the old print media, as well as the cable media, the networks. I mean, they're in a paradigm that they don't understand, something that's going on around them. We are entering into a new media world, and the newspapers, the radio, the TV, they'll still be around, but they'll only have a tiny percentage of the relevance that they used to have and influence that they used to have. The new media is here, is growing rapidly, and times are changing. But the fact of the matter is, the New York Times is bleeding red ink. And when you're bleeding red ink, you have to fire people. So the New York Times fired some editors and journalists. Now, generally, when people get fired, what do? They go, well, I got fired. Guess I better go find another job. That's what most people do. But no, not these editors and journalists at the New York Times. What did they do? They staged a protest. Yeah, they staged a protest out in front of the New York Times. They're walking back and forth on the sidewalk, holding signs and chanting, "No editors, no peace. No editors, no peace." I can't believe it. You know, someone gets fired while I work every day. There's literally 500, 700 people that work where I work. You know, people get fired every day for not showing up, for not producing, for, you know, whatever, starting fights, you know, not showering, whatever. People get fired for a lot of different reasons every day in jobs all across the country and across the world. People get fired from jobs. It's part of life, you know. Sometimes you get fired from a job, right? And most people, when they get fired, they just say, okay, well, I got fired. I gotta get another job. No. These people are going to protest. You know, I mean, you can't make this shit up, people. I mean, these liberals are nuts. No editors, no peace. No editors, no peace. You got fired. Get over it. Go get a real job. My goodness. Maybe you can go get a job at the Daily Beast. Maybe CNN is hiring. They will be. Trust me. CNN is going to be going through a major overhaul, as will MSNBC. But the days of the corporate media are coming to a end very rapidly, and it's amazing to watch it happen. And I'm proud to be a part of it. You will get far more truth from me than you ever will out of CNN, MSNBC. I may make a mistake. I may hit a bad source. I may get something wrong. I'll admit it. But I don't make a penny for doing these videos, nor am I interested necessarily in making any money doing these videos. I just do it because I like the truth. And I would like to counter the fake media. And I think I do a better job than the psycho Morning Joe and low IQ crazy Mika with the recent facelift and boob job and all the other things, Botox and other things. God knows how much silicone is that woman has in her body, but you know, she won't need to be embalmed when she dies. Probably, she's got so much silicone in her, she'll probably last for 1,000 years. Yeah, let's see. Now, this is another one. You gotta love this. Because the Democrats know that Trump, just in one term, will probably appoint at least 2 Supreme Court justices, possibly 3. And if he gets 2 terms, he could actually appoint at least 3, maybe 4 Supreme Court justices. You could literally have an entire conservative, constitutionalist, originalist Supreme Court with no liberals on it if Trump gets 2 terms. So, the Democrats know this, and of course the Democrats know if they can't win elections, the only way they can get their way is by the courts. If they can't get the votes, they just simply legislate what they want. Well, Donald Trump's obviously going to be able to put a major wrench into those spokes, and the Democrats know it. So they're sweating. And what are they trying to do right now? You're not going to believe this. I know you're going to think this is from The Onion. This is not from The Onion. This is actual hardcore truth, my friends. There's a group of Democrats now who are putting together a bill which will never see the light of day. It'll never get a vote. It'll never go anywhere. It's just, I guess it's all they can do to make themselves feel good. But the Democrats, a group of Democrats now, are wanting to put together a bill that would stop the Supreme Court from having lifetime appointments. They want to limit the Supreme Court justices now. Now, they thought it was a fantastic idea. When FDR expanded the Supreme Court, they never had a problem whatsoever with justices on the Supreme Court having lifetime appointments during Obama and the Clinton years, or even during the Bush years. But now that Trump is president, they got a real problem with Supreme Court justices having a lifetime appointment. So they're going to try to get a bill together that they think that they can get through the Congress that would limit the terms of Supreme Court justices. This will not happen. This will not even get a vote. It will not even see the light of day. It might get them a couple media appearances. It might help them raise some campaign money, and that's probably what this is all about anyway, purely election year politics. The Democrats are having trouble raising money. They're having a very difficult time. They know the political landscape looks very rough for them. They're going to have to try to find some new angles, if they can, to try to get some more cash together to hopefully hold on to their lousy jobs as swamp creatures, whose job primarily is to screw you and me. So, that's what they're trying to do. It is not going to work. It will be a massive fail. Podesta has meltdown on Fox News. And let's get right to the next thing. Before I wrap up the video, I just want to respond to something Maura, one of our, the lovely and talented Maura, I should say, one of our favorite commenters on this site, posed a very good question in the comment section for me. She keeps me on my toes. And I guess she had just watched this interview on Fox. I hadn't seen it yet. I had to go back and watch it based on her comment where they were discussing this issue going on with Assistant FBI Director Andrew McCabe. I'm not going to take the time to go into the lengthy explanation of what Mr. McCabe is all about, but I can tell you that Maura and all of you are correct in putting him on your list of swamp creatures, of reptiles. He is definitely a spirit cooker in the true sense of the word, and a very, very corrupt man. But what Maura was talking about in that in the comments section there, when she asked me if I was seeing what was going on with McCabe, basically, I think what she's referring to is the fact that Charles Grassley has fired off a letter to the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein questioning Andrew McCabe's decision, or questioning Rosenstein's decision to allow Andrew McCabe to be the Assistant AG and continue his duties based on a lot of the things that are going on with Mr. McCabe. And the things that are going on with Mr. McCabe is he's currently part of 3 different investigations. He's under investigation for having a conflict of interest due to the close relationship that he has with Terry McAuliffe and the Clintons. He is also the subject of a criminal investigation because he's being investigated for violations of the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act is basically, and there's been quite a few people prosecuted under the Hatch Act. If you are a member of the bureaucracy, such as the FBI, Department of Justice, or anything like that, if you are collecting a government check as part of the bureaucracy, and you go out and involve yourself in a political campaign, which he did, his wife's campaign, there can be issues with that, and it can sometimes get an investigation launched onto you because of violating the Hatch Act. There's quite a few different rules and things that you have to follow when you are, say, an FBI director, assistant FBI director, attorney general, these types of positions, cabinet positions, and things like that. There are issues with what you can do politically. It's just like when you're in the military. You know, the military, you know, you're not allowed to go to a political rally in a military uniform when you're active duty military or reserves. Individuals have done it, and they have been sanctioned for it. And so it works the same way. When you're serving as a official in the FBI or whatever, you're not allowed to engage in certain types of political activities. And Mr. McCabe did this. In fact, it was for his wife, who was all tangled up with Terry McAuliffe. There's a FBI investigation going on into that, and so he and his wife were caught up in that, as well as the fact that he is being investigated separately for violations of the Hatch Act. So that's the second thing he's being looked at for. But probably the most interesting thing is something that Circa News stumbled onto, and I think they're the ones who wrote the original story, and I think that that's the Fox News interview that Maura was talking about. And what they're saying is basically there was a woman who, let's see if I get this right, there was a woman who was, I guess, in the FBI, and she had filed a complaint, a sexual discrimination complaint, and Mr. McCabe was the target of that complaint. Now, as it turns out, Michael Flynn was familiar with this woman and her case, and he was willing to testify on this woman's behalf. And so Circa News is saying, if you look at what happened here, there's this case going on with McCabe, sex discrimination case with McCabe being the target. Then Michael Flynn, who I guess knows this woman and is going to vouch for her or testify on her behalf, makes that known that he's going to do that. And then what happens is McCabe, of course, launches this investigation into Michael Flynn. It was also, apparently it's being alleged that she and other people who she has witnesses, I assume, that state that they had numerous times had overheard Mr. McCabe talking very badly about Mr. Flynn prior to launching the investigation on him, and that he was, of course, a known Hillary supporter, very anti-Trump. So these are all issues that are conflicts of interest, and so this is why Charles Grassley fired off the letter to Rosenstein to have Mr. Rosenstein reevaluate whether or not Mr. McCabe should be even serving as the assistant FBI director, or if he should step down, or what have you. So that is kind of what's going on with that scandal. We will see where that goes. There are just so many things going on, so many investigations, and so many different committees that you got to wonder when they would have time to even get to something like this. But it certainly does, the way that Circa News frames this story, and they put everything in a timeline for you, so it certainly looks like the investigation into Michael Flynn could have been a lot more to do with the fact at targeting him to silence him or to threaten him, having to do with this woman who's filing the sexual discrimination case against the FBI. So this is certainly an angle you can look at. I'm sure that this story will continue to develop. But thank you, Maura, for pointing that out to me. I actually wasn't aware of that. I had to go actually research up on that and look into that. But that's apparently what's going on with that story, and so we'll keep following that too. like we don't have enough to do here every day. My goodness. But anyway, it is a fun Friday. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video today, and I'll be back Saturday evening with a new video. So this is your Friday video for Friday, June the 30th, 2017, day 118 of TowerGate. Thank you all for tuning in, subscribing. Love your comments and the thumbs up. Really appreciate you guys. And I'll see you Saturday evening, and we'll see what happens next. Y'all take care. Bye.